Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You are now tuned in to Psych Shade. Class is now in session. So our second researcher for SCT is going to be Joy, and we are going to look at a very real-life scenario here and a topic that's still debated, and we'll watch a little news clip later on in the class about it. We are looking at the impact that media has on aggressive behavior. So it's considered a longitudinal natural experiment. It's longitudinal because it's an extended period of time. It's natural because the experimenters did not give the people of this town access to TVs just for this experimental purpose. It just happened naturally, so they didn't manipulate the independent variable. But it's still an experiment because they measure the dependent variable using different triangulation methods, having teachers and peers rate the behavior of the participants. So it's a combination of a couple, so let's just be clear on that before we start. So in order to get anything really out of this slide, you should have read the reading on the class website already. So if you haven't done that, why don't you pause the video, go and read the study from the class website, and then come back. Otherwise, this won't really make sense. But the results showed that there was an increase in aggressive behaviors in the no-tell kids, the city that just got TV, compared to the two control cities that had already had television before. So if we're linking it to social cognitive theory and observational learning, okay, we would say that Joy found that participants recently exposed to TV shows increased aggressive behavior as compared to the control groups. Okay, this supports social cognitive theory because it shows that model kids are exposed to what they're exposed to on television lead to heightened arousal and aggressive behavior. So again, that would be a link that you would want to use in an SAQ that's explaining the findings of the study linked specifically to social cognitive theory, which is about observational learning and learning from models. So if you need to clear some stuff up or go back to the reading, make sure you go and do that. We should be fairly good at critically thinking or magicking our studies, but let's just go through this real quick because it's been a while. So as far as the method goes, you have triangulation, naturalistic, and there could be bias from teachers, peers, researchers. So all of that stuff is internal. You have high internal, and then bias would obviously be low internal. Certainly this study has application to the real world. There's media everywhere that influences the way we think and behave, and that can, according to this study, directly impact our behavior even to an aggressive point. Culturally, these are limited to small Canadian towns, so that would be a low external point that we would want to talk about. So continuing with the idea of applicability to real life, there's a little clip here that talks a lot about a topic that's debated on quite frequently, and that is the idea of violent video games. So if watching violent models on TV could cause aggressive behaviors, you would think then that controlling characters in a video game where that character is committing violent acts or illegal acts, would that create the idea or incentivize kids to want to do the same in real life? So I don't know, you could find arguments on both sides. I've played video games every year growing up as a kid, and I played GTA, and I never wanted to grab somebody out of their car and steal their vehicle. So I don't know, but there are research that would argue against me. So this is a little clip that shows what some of that research is focused on in violent video games and kids' behaviors. So because this is a theory, we have to stay sipping and we have to evaluate it with our teacup models. So a lot of these are things that we've talked about all year, so I'm not going to go through these point for point. Also, I know on the video it cuts off the top and the bottom, so make sure that you go to the actual PowerPoint on the class website. But everything is pretty straightforward. I will focus the applicability. I think we can talk about things outside of just aggressive behaviors. There are certainly other behaviors that there is evidence for, that if you see people doing it, there's a lot higher likelihood that you are going to model that behavior. The unbiased part, I guess you might have a question on. It focuses on the idea, it almost disregards the idea of nature and there being any biological aspect to the way you think and behave. And so if it's completely on nurture, there's obviously going to be some cultural components to that. So those are some things that you would need to take into consideration. But the theory itself we would consider to be unbiased, and then there would be some predictive value here. Based on the motivation and the imitation and the likeness of the model, we might be able to guess or take a pretty good prediction on how people might react in certain scenarios. A couple more things. We're just trying to provide you as many resources as we can. So if you're bored and you really want to learn more about social cognitive theory or observational learning, here's a video that kind of goes over that again. Again, if you feel really confident about this and you're solid on what we've went over so far this week, not necessarily something that you got to dive into, but if you want an extra resource to supplement what we've talked about, feel free to watch this video. So we are done with social cognitive theory. So a couple things to do to wrap up the key concept. Again, this video is cutting off the slides, so make sure that you are looking at the actual PowerPoint on the class website. So we should have stereotypes filled in. We should have 2 for the formation and 2 for the effects. So Curry made this PowerPoint and she is confident in 2 of her students having done stereotypes already. I'm sure I'm confident in way more than 2 of my site kids, but make sure that you have the stereotypes filled in, and now we can fill in SCT key concept as well. You could also go ahead and fill in the methods in subcategory 3 for individual and the group. You have at least 2 different research methods that you could use. We're going to use a specific study for ethics for this, so hang on that one. The last thing that I want to point you to, and I think it's cut off in this video, but next week we are going to watch Zootopia with some SCLOA key concepts in mind. So if you see if you have somebody, maybe you have it, but it's on Disney Plus. So see if you can borrow a friend's Disney Plus, or if you have it, you're good to go. But we are going to be watching Zootopia next week, and there are going to be some questions that you'll answer and turn it on, turn it in. So see if you can get that figured out before next week. So if you have any questions, stop in on the Zoom. Otherwise, class dismissed.